Good morning to the work session. And please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you, and welcome to the first ever filmed, videotaped, recorded, and live streamed work session of the Carver County Board of Commissioners. Normally, we would be in pajamas and robes, maybe some Crocs, fuzzy Crocs. So we're dressed pretty well this morning, I would say. But being that it is a work session, we do not take votes. So the work session is exactly that, something to work on some issues that would be coming down the road, but no official votes will be taken, although often you might get a good idea about where the county board stands on an issue or not after we have a little bit of discussion. So why don't we get right to it and get an update on Carver Link broadband activities, always compelling.
I'd like to think so. So, welcome this morning, and thanks for having me here. We're going to basically go through a little bit about what Carver Link is and who we are and where we're at and where we're headed right now.
Mr. Lease, and I'm going to say your name correctly, right? Lease,
absolutely.
One of the handful that say it right.
Yep.
Don't say it the way it looks. Why don't you introduce yourself to the Carver County residents?
Absolutely. My name is Randy Lease, and I'm a county employee, and I manage the county's public fiber network called Carver Link. And so, and with that, I'm going to jump right in. And I'm an old legacy dog here with 20 years of experience, and I've been with the county since 2006. So the fiber project is pretty much, and the fiber network has pretty much been in my lap since that time, with lots of assistance from lots of other people throughout the county. So with that, I want to bring up here, every time I come through and do an RBA for what we're doing in front of you, there's an electronic form that I have to fill out, and there's a drop down there that we have to select on what we have for a mission statement from the county. So I'm lucky enough because my stuff is always communications and connectivity. So I always get to pick that one. Same thing goes for Carver Link. Whenever we're doing anything, we've got a purpose that we've had since the beginning of our time. Now, the beginning of our time started just so that you have a little timeline for it. So again, Carver Link is the county's publicly owned fiber network. I've been with the county since 2006. It was 3 weeks into my tenure here at the county, the fiber project, or fiber in itself, or something relating to connectivity, was thrown on my lap as the IT manager. And it fostered from there to 2007, where we said, well, we want to do a fiber network, to going after funding in 2008, 2009 through the financial crisis, to 2011 actually getting an award from the Obama administration through some federal funding that was out to try to help us keep us off the ledge of financial ruin from a country. And we were able to be lucky enough to secure funding with that. In 2011, we started constructing. And then in 2013, we went live with our network that we now call Carver Link. So we've got 4 primary focuses that we have. And one of them is our key critical one, or our main purpose that we have. And our main purpose is to take care of ourselves with the fiber network that we have. So we look to take our network that we have and use it for ourselves. That includes all the communication that we have for the county itself, our libraries, our 800 megahertz system, our public works activities that we do with our single cabinets and things like that. Then we have 3 secondary purposes, and they're in no order of importance, one better than the other. But our first secondary importance is working with our Carver County located community support and public entities, and that includes our schools. We've got a regional hospital system with Ridgeview in there, all of our cities, and things like that. Secondary purpose, our second secondary purpose is actually to use our, what we call it in the industry, it's called a middle mile network. We treat it like a highway. I always talk about fiber like highway system. So we've got highways in roads, and we've got highways of fiber. So we have a middle mile fiber network, they call it, which basically means we've got interstates and we've got highways of fiber. And we use that fiber in a collaborative way through the region to be a good collaborative partner to facilitate communications and things like that with a lot of our partners around. So we've got relationships with McLeod, Scott County, Hennepin County, various cities, school districts, and things like that, where we actually collaborate together and try to regionally try to be a good player in the, hey, let's get connected marketplace. And then lastly, and this is a little bit quasi-unique for a public owned fiber network, is that we actually use our middle mile network, our small road network that we have in Carver County, to actually partner with a private service provider. And we've got several service providers in our network. Our primary one is Metronet. And we use our network to actually help facilitate bringing broadband availability out to the businesses and residents of Carver County. And there's going to be a lot of talk about that today. We talked about one of the areas that we focus on. One of our purposes is to actually help bring connectivity to our public partners in Carver County. This is just a little slide about some of the people that we work with here that we actually provide fiber optics to. We provide fiber and we provide services in two. It's real simple for what we've got. We do two things. We provide the road, the fiber itself, to some people that want to use it. And then we also provide, just like if you have a road does you no good if you don't put something on it. So you want to buy your car, your truck, your semi, whatever you may have to be able to run on the thing, to transport whatever you have. Well, we actually also provide internet services to the public customers in our network as well. So those are the two things we provide, and we provide it to the majority of these people here on the list. We started in 2023, that's when we went live. 2024 was actually the most transformational year we've had in our history, even over 2013. So it was a big year for us. So if you looked at what we were on December 31st of 2023 to what we were on January 1st of 2025, we look like a different animal for what we are and what we've got available to us. So in that, we transformed a lot of things from our operations, our security, our physical structures and facilities that we have, and taking care of ourselves, and then also taking care of our public entities. We've had a lot of things that have happened where we've put things in place for us and others. We actually also transferred our fiber infrastructure, and one of the goals that we have here at the county is try to reach the being 100% fiber or high-speed broadband available countywide. That's one of our goals, and we're trying to become what we call a gig county, which means we've got a gigabit internet speed, symmetrical, which means it goes both ways, a gig up and a gig down, and our efforts are trying to become a county, and we would actually be the first county in the state that would have that, except for 4 small ones that are up north, and we'll talk about them a little bit. One thing I will say, and this is a testament to county administration and the board that sits here and some of the people before you that were on the board. One of the things that makes us unique specifically in the region and actually throughout the country is our ability as a public entity to be able to be agile and responsive to what we do. There are things that have taken place in 2024 and even since 2022 where if we tried to recreate them right now, they would not be possible. And we would not be in the position that when you see some slides further on that we're in right now. So you wouldn't have that availability. And the reason that we're able to do some of the stuff that we do is the board and administration helped us fashion Carver Link in a manner that allows me to be nimble when I'm out there working with the different options and opportunities that come our way. So it isn't a typical type of a government type of a thing where it's going to take weeks and months. We had a collaboration that we were asked to do for Hennepin County and Scott County. And they were working on something and they were a little behind the ball on what they were working on. And they came and said, hey, can you help us with some connectivity to help they're trying to bring their sheriff's offices together and do some collaborative stuff that way. And they said, well, we kind of would like to keep moving on this here. And they came to us in December. And they said, well, we've got up until June of 2025, but we'd really like to try to keep moving. Can you help us with that? And I said, absolutely. We can surely do that. They said, how long would it help or how long would it take for you to put something in place? And I said, how does 7 days sound? And 7 days it was. And so they were actually able to continue to keep moving and keep the project on pace even though they were behind it. And so that's the kind of the stuff that we have in place with Carver Link. A little bit, just a real quick map. You can see the different lines on here are the fiber network that we had in 2023. This is what we have now in 2025. So it just shows that there's a lot of fiber throughout. A lot of fiber throughout doesn't really do us a lot of good because fiber's fiber. It just sits there. It's a road. If you don't use the road, what big deal is it that you've got more roads, more to deal with? Thing that we've got right now, and a lot of what we're going to talk about a little bit later, is what this means to our businesses and residents in Carver County, because a lot of what you see on there is the builds that we've been doing to try to make us 100% high-speed available countywide. These are just a little chart that shows a little bit of some of what we've got going on here from when we started in 2013 and where we were at in 2023, and now we're at in December of 2024. So we've got relatively 1,200 miles of usable fiber in our network. We connect up 280 public entity locations, including the ones for ourselves. We've got a 50 gig network that we operate within. We've got 30 gigabyte of that is subscribed out to our 20 plus public entities that we support. We connect up facilities in all 11 cities. We've got what's called an interconnect point. It's a place basically on our fiber where you can work off of it to connect up something. We've got 3,200 of those now, where we started with 1,300. And we've got 5 internet backbone feeds, which what that means is that we have to get our internet from somewhere. The internet is out there. We have to bring it to us so that we can then feed it out to our public entities and to ourselves. And so we've got now 5 providers that feed us so that we have full diversity and redundancy in that. So if we ever have any failure or loss of any of those, we've got enough in our network to be able to accommodate everything that we'd have if we would have a loss of even 2 of them. And then we also are a major supporter for Ridgeview facilities. We actually connect up all of their hospitals and clinics throughout all of southern Minnesota. One of the things we did, we talked about it being a transformational 2024. We transformed our fiber infrastructure. There's a lot of things that were on the slide before, so I won't spend much time for that. We transformed our security. We took a big look at what we had from a security aspect internally and for our customers and said, hey, what are some of the things that we've got out here? What can we do to secure ourselves better in this environment? So we put new firewalls in. We implemented security standards as far as a multi-form authentication for stuff that we do, just like you have to do when you're logging into your county laptops. You got to sign yourself in with your keys and things like that. We implemented a number of other security features. We had one of our public customers actually get hit with a security attack, and we were involved in trying to help them come back to life from that over a 3-day event. So we were working with them as a service provider to go, hey, you guys got hurt, you're getting hurt, how can we help, kind of thing. So it's things like that and a number of other security things that we put in place to assist with that. We transformed our own network for Carver County itself. So, and in Carver Link's operations, again, we added a couple of backbone internet providers to our network, and then we also implemented a 3rd data center. So we've got right now, and case in point, what may happen with the Chaska License Center, which is one of Carver Link's data centers. If that happens to have a move at some point in time, we were vulnerable because we would be down to 1. Now we have 3 data centers, so if we have any loss of either of them, the network has got 2 redundant data centers alive for us that we can operate with. It's something real simple that you could look at another time when you want to have some good Sunday morning reading. It's the Carver Link internet stool. This is something that a number of people here have heard me over the years use and talk about. I always talk about things in the 3-legged stool. I like 3 versus 2. 3 makes me feel a lot better. So we've got 3 of anything that we can probably try to do so that we can actually maintain ourselves and for how we feed the network to ourselves and our public customers. It actually comes through the 3-legged stool. So if we lost connectivity through any one of the legs, 2 of them are still enough there to be able to support everything that we do, for everything that we've got, from internet providers to our facilities, to our network switches, to the fiber itself. We transformed things for our public partners. We talked about our public partners and community support people that we provide services to. We're in the process, actually, we're hoping to finish it today. So we've got people out right now. I've got 3 crews out today that are throughout everywhere from Hamburg to Waconia to Chaska License Center to Savage Tower and Shakopee. And they're installing a unified network that we've got right now with Ridgeview Medical that we signed an agreement to put in place. And it actually unifies for the $500,000 network installation of equipment. It unifies Ridgeview's network and our network together so that we could provide them connectivity and communications for all their facilities. We connected up, and I'm pretty proud of this here. When we went live in 2013, we reached out to all of our public entities and said, hey, where do you want to get connected? And some of those places were in Carver County, and some of them were outside of Carver County. So we've got a number of our agencies that we work with that actually have facilities and structures outside. And so it's kind of been a wish list that's been on our thing, and I'm a list checker. And so that's been the list that's been on my plate since 2013 to go, how can I get to X for somebody? Because they're trying to get to here. And so the last one we had was from one of our 7 public school districts in Carver County, which is Southwest Mestro. And they actually have a ed center that's over in Shakopee called the Dean Lakes Ed Center. And they came to us here last year and said, we're dying over here. Nobody can get us what we need. Can you help us? And I said, let me see what I can do. So we went out and we collaborated with 3 other collaboration partners to be able to bring fiber together so that we put that in place. And in October, we went live with that facility. So that's the last of our facilities that everybody's asked us to connect. So now anything that we have is going to be new stuff. So what do you got? You got a new fire station. You got to do this, do that. How can we hook you up? Okay. We increased our customer bandwidth to 30 gig. So that's what we feed out the network with. And then we did a bunch of stuff here for District 112, which is Eastern Carver County Schools. They are our largest school district of our 7 by far. They handle the majority of the kids in the county by far. And they came to us and said, you know, we're kind of being a big pig to the fiber network from the Carver County Schools network that we have set up for them. And because we have a network set up for all of our 7 districts together. And they're like, you know, we're kind of hogging that network. Can we split off and be on our own? And we said, absolutely, that would actually be a good thing. So we worked for a couple of months with them, and we established a new fiber ring and set up District 112 or Eastern Carver County School ring for them. So lastly, another one that I'm really proud of, and it has absolutely everything to do with a slide that you're going to hear me talk about a little later, and it has to do with the data work that we get out of the county from a infrastructure standpoint and what we do. It's absolutely important for me to be able to do what I do, and I can only do what I do if I have the right documentation and data, and it's timely and it's meaningful. And one of the things that we've been able to do is whenever we're doing, and if you see the map that we had before that had a whole bunch of green lines on it throughout the county, we spent a ton of time figuring out how we're going to route our fiber throughout the county and the region. So whenever we're doing anything, it's like, well, how can we set this up? I mean, let's not just plot it out on a map and just say, let's do this. It'd be no different than Linden coming out here and building roads and just randomly, well, let's just run it right down here. We don't do that with our fiber either. We very specifically and meticulously go through that. And we look at how we can actually build our fiber in a manner that doesn't cost us any more, but it could be used in ways that will reach beyond what we've got in mind for it. Case in point, there are 3 cities that are outside of Carver County that we're really proud of because of our design that cost us no additional dollars other than design time, that we sat down and helped figure out what we could do. And because of our design, it took those cities that previously Metronet had identified as cities that were not economically viable to build to because the routes to get to them were not there. We built our Connect Up Carver, our fiber lines in Carver County, Carver Link. We built them in a manner that actually allowed them, and they're in the network with us, to use the network fiber that they have in our network to actually build out to these various cities. And they actually hooked up their first customer in Lester Prairie on the 22nd. So we were able to actually help out and reach out collaboratively and regionally to be able to help bring fiber out, again, at no cost to us, to be able to serve some of those communities that those people are shopping in Carver County too.
What are the other 2 cities?
Shorewood and Belle Plaine.
Okay.
So we had a bunch of negotiations. We talked a little bit earlier about the fact of the opportunities of us being agile and being able to respond quickly. There are a number of negotiations that we put in place in 2024 that were key and critical, that if I tried to recreate them now with the environment, because the fiber world is moving fast. Things are consolidating, people are buying people. it's a land grab. I've talked about this before. It's a gold rush, and it's whoever gets there first wins. And if you aren't there, it's the Ma Bell from 1970. If you aren't the one that had copper in the ground in 1970, then you bought your stuff from Ma Bell. And so same thing goes with the fiber world. Right now, we see it that it's a land grab for customers and fiber, because the first fiber provider to somebody that's who they're probably going to stick with from a customer base. So we've been able to put a lot of agreements in place that have been able to be put in place because we can be quick and responsive to what it is that's going on in the market, and be able to actually pull off putting those agreements together in not 4 and 5 month timeframes, but in 30-day timeframes, because we need to be able to move with the market. And so we've been able to do that. And again, that's a testament to the county administration and the board for giving us the ability to be able to do that type of stuff. So we've put a number of agreements in place over the last year, or 2024, that have allowed us to do what it is that you're going to see in some slides coming up here. And then I want to talk a little bit about our staff resources. I'm kind of a one-man show. I've got a 25% shared position that does some technical work for us. I way overuse other resources in the county, and that includes our GIS department. Matt Rontala, I want to call him out. He's a GIS senior analyst in our GIS department. He and I have worked hand in hand for the last 5 years. What you're going to see on slides coming up here, I wouldn't be where we're at, and you wouldn't be where you're at with where we're at in this network today without him. I can't emphasize that enough, because he brings me the data that I need, and everything in what we do is data driven. I got to have the right data, and it's got to be timely, and I've got to be able to move on it. And he can pull that stuff off for me, and has over the last half a decade. And then my 2 technical resources, my 25%ers. We've got a couple of technical resources that I have way overutilized from, I'm going to call out Jim running in the IT infrastructure team, because I have cannibalized his hours for Carver Link's operations with some of his staff that we share, and Adam Malm and Matt Kelly. And I want to call this out here because later this afternoon we have the Public Services Peer Awards, and I'm not sure if any of you are involved in that type of thing, but it's basically some awards through Public Services Division that call out the exemplary employees in different categories and areas. And I'm proud to say that those 3 gentlemen are actually up for peer awards this afternoon. So, and I hope they all win, but they can't. So, and then I want to call out, outside of the public services stuff, I've got people that help support Carver Link heavily for what we've got. Again, one-man show, but I can't do it without the help of everybody else that's here. Mary Kay from Finance, Lisa Songel, Diane Ruglin, Patrick Connis from the attorney, and county administration for supporting what we're doing. Again, you guys, you people up here to be able to support the operations that we're running. So now we're going to talk a little bit about our efforts. We're going to switch away from Carver Link itself, and we're going to talk about what we're trying to do for the county, for our businesses and residents. And that's relating to us trying to become 100% high-speed broadband available countywide. And relating to that, it's trying to become a gig county. So we found out about a year ago, we were touting ourselves to be, we're going to try to be the first county in the state of Minnesota to be a high-speed broadband, a gig county. We were at a conference about a year ago. One of my colleagues was, Matt Rantala, was at a meeting, and one of the trade groups was there, and Matt was touting about our efforts to try to be 100% fibered up, and somebody came over and said, you can't say that anymore. There's 4 little guys up north that have done that. So there's 4 counties that are up north that are under 8,000 people populations as a whole, and they've actually completed that task in 2023 and throughout 2024. So actually just got confirmation yesterday from that same trade group to say, is there anybody new in here that we're competing with for that effort? And they said, no. If you're trying to go and become the first county in the state, the 5th one to be it, but the first, now we've changed our message to be the first over 10,000 in the first metro county. So we've changed our tooling for that, and that's still accurate as we work toward that goal. So how are we doing that? How are we going to try to get to that? We've had 2 projects over the last 2 to 3 years now. First one was in 2022. It's our Connect Up Carver project. There's a slide on that later, so I won't get into it too heavily. And then we had a 2023 one that the board approved funding for that we went and started construction on in the summer of 2024, called our Connect Up Carver expansion that we'll talk about. And then that, along with some other arrangements that we've had. So we've got there's a lot of, rightfully or so, but they've worked for us. We've got a really great partner in Metronet, and there are a lot of things that we're doing with them that are handshake agreements. It's, you know what, we're gonna do this together. They're non-contractual, but we've been able to help fashion their leadership to be able to bring some things to the table for us that they don't do for anybody else in our shared goal of trying to become 100%. So there's 3 different programs that are on here that we've associated with them with, and that have been very positive for us and have cost us nothing, but it's just because of the relationship that we've had with them and their previous company that they acquired, which was Jaguar Communications, that they acquired in 2020. So let's talk a little bit about high speed, because there's going to be some maps that are come up here in the following slides. So now, high speed is a relative term. We're trying to become a gig county. We want to have a gig symmetrical. Symmetrical means it's the same speed up and down, and we're trying to become a gig county. I think that'd be a great thing for us as a county to be able to go out and promote with the mission that the county board has from the mission statement that I read. And it's the fact that we want to maintain our rural heritage. We want to be able to support the urbanization that we have going on. And so we've got that great mix. Well, how can we do that? Well, if we've got high speed out in our rural areas, our rural areas can actually, we get called for that. Hey, how can I do what I need to do out here as a farmer, as a business person out in the rural area? I can't do it. I don't have the connectivity I need in this world anymore. And it used to be pre-COVID, we would actually hear a lot, and one of the big things I'd hear is like, well, Randy, my Netflix is slow. It's like, well, after COVID, it wasn't about Netflix anymore. It was about telehealth, it was about education, it was about working remotely. We found out that high-speed internet wasn't just a, I can't get my Netflix show anymore type of thing. And so that brought that on. One of the things that we've got is that the state and the Fed have speed standards. And those speed standards right now for both the state and the Fed are that if you have a 100 meg download speed and 20 meg upload speed, you're considered serviced. And what that means, that serviced is a big keyword, because if you're serviced, you can't go get any money from the state or the Fed to be able to try to bring services to those locations. And that standard is supposed to be good for between 5 and 7 years beyond today. So we're looking at 7 years from now, 100 meg down and 20 meg up would be considered, well, you're taken care of. We've got a different philosophy on that. We're trying to become a gig county. So some of the stuff that you're going to see is in our efforts to try to be a gig county versus trying to meet the states and Fed standards of the 100 meg down, 20 meg up, which we don't consider for what we're trying to do to meet the standards of what we want to accomplish. With that, how are we trying to get to the 100%? We had a Connect Up Carver project that we started in 2022, and it went live, and we had a deadline for it to be completed by December 31st of 2024, and we actually met that deadline. So what that is, it's a $10.5 million project. The board provided $6.5 million of that from county funds, and it was out to basically build out a big chunk of our rural area. There are 44,000 addresses in Carver County, and throughout the county, in both city and rural, and that's how we kind of break things up as rural and city. And so we were picking on our rural people that didn't quite have some of the connectivity that the cities do. And so we were able to identify 2,200 locations, and we built out to those 2,200 locations. So if you're in a geographic area that's in that project's, in that project, then you're eligible right now to be able to sign up for 1 gig Metronet service for $80 a month. Okay. Then in 2023, the board was able to find another $2.5 million in a random David Frischman discussion about what would it take to try to get the rest of Carver County rural done, and in a finance meeting. And I said it'd take about $2.5 million. And he said, well, we don't have that. And I said, well, that's fine. I'm not asking for it. I'm just telling you what it is. And so from that, it actually led to a discussion about a week later of, there's some things that weren't coming through for some other funding that was happening for something else from the Fed. And so that the funding became available. And so with that, we were able to take that $2.5 million from December, and through extensive negotiations with Metronet, and this is where we were being agile again, because right now I wouldn't be able to recreate that agreement we had with them. But we were actually able to take that $2.5 million and put it together in a $14.3 million project that is ongoing right now that we're gonna own the whole thing when we're done. So we got 2.5 million in the game for it. And what that does is it builds out the rest of our rural. So when that's done, and the rural has a timeline to be completed by June of 2025, and we got the construction done before Christmas. And now we still have to do some of the ancillary connection stuff. We built the road, great. I still have to build the on-ramps and things like that. So over the course of the next several months, we're building the fiber on-ramps or the off-ramps so that we can connect up those 400 plus rural folks that are out there yet. And so we should be able to be at that point in time by June of 2025, we should have 100% rural fiber coverage for everybody that would want to connect up. And they'd be able to have fiber gig internet. And then separately in that same project, there's a city build portion is what we call, because we break everything up in rural and city. And so there's a city portion to that, and that has a timeline to be completed by June of 2026. And what that does is it actually builds out the cities of Chanhassen and Victoria, again, which we're going to own that fiber infrastructure once it's done. I'm going to take you through a quick little run of slides here. So talked about the fact that there's 44,000 addresses in Carver County, and we took the county and said, well, you know what? We want to try to fill it in with 100% availability. So here's a blank slate that we've got. So there's the county with the blank slate. We're going to fill in the swamps and the lakes so that we can fill it in and make it like, and when we're done, we're going to try to see how blue we can make this here map. And now we're going to take, and we've been alive since 2013, and our big project, our Connect Up Carver project started in 2022. But prior to that, from 2013 to 2022, this is what we had in the ground that could be used to service anybody that's out there. And so the blue filled that in with our swamps and lakes. And then we came in and throughout when we were working with Jaguar since 2009, we've had a relationship with the Jaguar CEO at the time, John Jensen, and we had a shared vision, and it was to actually fiber up the county. And so every year I would sit with John and go, John, what city can we do now? I know you've only got so many dollars, what can we do? So over the course of the years, up until about 2020, 2021, when Metronet acquired Jaguar, we had worked with Jaguar itself to actually build out 7 of our cities, a lot of our smaller ones, because that's the old money that Jaguar could afford to do, but they build out all of our smaller cities. So they're fully fibered up in our small cities. So we add the cities that we now have fibered up as of 2025, and that adds actually now, we've got 11 cities in Carver County, and so we've got 8 of them that are done. From that, we come in here and we talk about our Connect Up Carver project, which is our 2022 project, and we add all that rural stuff that's now done as of December 31st, 2024. So we fill the map in with those. And then we come up with our Connect Up Carver expansion rural project that's ongoing right now that we should be done by June of 2025 on. So our rural will be done. And everything out there that's rural and associated with the smaller communities will be done as well. From that, now we jump into our Connect Up Carver expansion, or the Kooky as we call it. We jump into the Victoria and the Chanhassen builds that we've got ongoing right now. We hope to substantially complete a bunch of that in 2025. And then we've got until June of 2026 to complete builds in those cities. So Metronet is building out those cities, so that'll fill that in. And then in turn, there's actually been, with that and timing wise, we've actually seen some other competitors come into the marketplace that we've never seen, which we're happy about because we like the competition. So Comcast is actually also building out the city of Chanhassen as we speak. So they're actually, it's a free for all, whoever gets there first kind of thing. So Metronet and Comcast are coming after Chanhassen as a whole. There's a company called Midco that is building out about 25% of Victoria. And then we've actually got discussions going on. Actually, tomorrow I've got discussions going on with another regional provider called Consolidated who does stuff around the area, but they aren't in Carver County yet, and they would actually like to come into Carver County as well. So we've got some options for some of a lot of times it's the urban stuff again, which is good, but we've got urban options coming into the plate too, outside of what we've already got in motion too, which is great. So now we jump in, and what we've got left, we've got the city of Chaska. I throw my hands up because the city of Chaska has been our dilemma since 2013, trying to figure out how we can fill the void in Chaska. we talked a little bit about speeds and stuff like that and what that means. And so there are three main providers that are providing services in Chaska. First one is Quantum Fiber, which is Lumen or CenturyLink's product. That's their fiber product. They provide gig download speed and upload speed. There's about 600 locations there's about 12,000 locations in the city of Chaska. And so about 600 of them are covered by Quantum Fiber. And then we've got non-contractual commitments from Metronet, who also is going to provide the gig service, to come in and build out the gist of the city of Chaska. But they've got until, there's no contracts with us for that because we're not putting any money for it. But we've, in our agreements of, hey, try to get us to 100%, they're looking to come in and build out the city of Chaska in areas where Quantum and potentially other providers may not be. But they've got until 2027 that they've got planned to maybe do that. So that would be a 2 to 3 year time frame as that gets filled out. But that would fill the areas that they've got planned to build, fill the void this way. And then lastly, and you can see it on this slide, there's some overlap from Comcast Xfinity. So right now, if we add, and right now Comcast, we've got data from Comcast itself or Xfinity, and we've got data from the FCC, which provides maps that the Comcast is required to provide to them. And they identify the fact that they've got roughly 10,000 locations in Chaska covered already with fiber service. The downside is that they are not providing symmetrical service yet. They're still doing the gig download speed, and they do a 35 meg upload speed. So I would encourage some of our board members that have citizens in those communities to help us reach out to Comcast and help to promote the fact of them going symmetrical speeds. And that is something that is an option, because in a 2022 CEO presentation from Comcast, they came out and said that by the end of 2025, they were going to take their 50 million customers nationwide that had fiber internet from them, and they were going to make them symmetrical. So we would like to see Comcast come through with that commitment that they did. We're very happy with the fact that in the Chanhassen builds that they are doing right now, that we had helped to negotiate a franchise agreement between the city of Chanhassen and Comcast to build out those cities. And in that, we had asked them, and they had said that they would actually put that they were going to provide symmetrical speeds. But when it came down to the attorney's involvement, they said they wouldn't put that in there. So we felt like it might be a little bit of a bait and switch. There is a first set of customers that was identified in that franchise agreement that Comcast needed to hook up. They're on Hesse Farm Road in Chanhassen. There's a champion that we have that's on that road that has been working with us for the last couple of years trying to bring fiber to that location. And he actually reached out to me in December and said, "Randy, thank you." And I said, "What for?" He said, "I'm connected." I said, "Who with?" He said, "Comcast." I said, "Great." I said, "What's your speed?" And he sat down at his computer and pulled it up, and it's symmetrical gig speed, which is the first time we've seen that in Carver County. And Comcast has completed fiber builds in Chaska, Cologne, and the city of Carver within the last 18 months that don't have that. So this is the first time that we've seen that they actually brought to the table that they did. So we're very excited about that. With that, that takes us to here. So if we can throw the fact that Comcast is in there and Metronet's on top of that and Quantum's in there and we're building out, that leaves about 190 locations left in the city of Chaska that we don't have done yet, countywide. And from that, looking at how the builds would take place from the expansions that most of the providers do, because a lot of these are areas, and this is a moving target. I mean, at any given day, there's more residential neighborhoods going up and a new parcel gets put on. So it's a moving target to try to get everybody at the same time and get done. We'll never actually be done. It's always going to be there's somebody else new. One of the things that we have with Metronet is that from the builds that we're doing with them, they've got 12 months requirement from us that they've got to go out and hook up anybody new that comes along in areas that we've identified that they've got to build within. But right now, about 160 of those areas should be covered under expansions from the three, Lumen, Metronet, and Comcast. And that leaves us about 30 left. So we've got some onesie-twosies out there that we're going to be working on over the course of the next year or two, trying to figure out how we can bring them into the fold. But right now, if everything can go as we hoped it to be, and things can come together potentially with Comcast, with what we've got, is that potentially by June of 2026, we could truly state the fact that we're 100% high-speed gigabit service county. Here's just a little slide that shows you the other 4 counties that beat us. Dang them anyhow. So we've got 4 in front of us that are up here: Big Stone, Lincoln County, Stevens County. I don't even know how, LaKeeper. I'm going to just leave that one up. There we go. Thank you. So they have beat us to the punch, but right now, again, we're going to be the first over, if we can do it and pull it off, which we look to be able to do so, is that we'd be the first over 10,000 in the first Twin City metro. I'm going to say that, but I want to call out a couple things here before I say thank you and questions. There's a little bit I want to throw out here. One of the things, and we talked about that a number of times, it's about being responsive and being agile with what we've got. One of the things that we had when we worked with Jaguar for a decade, was the fact that they were a smaller company. They didn't have some of the dollars that were available to them to be able to pull off some of the bigger things that we had desired them to do. But they did their best, and we believed that. And then Metronet came along in 2020 and acquired them. And Jaguar was a $150 million company. At the time in 2020, Metronet was a $3.5 billion company. And just so that you understand the mergers and acquisitions and the growth, 4 years later, Metronet is a $7 billion company. So in 4 years, they've doubled. And now Metronet is actually on the box right now, and T-Mobile is looking to buy them. So in the first quarter of 2025, they look to actually, if it goes through all the regulatory approvals yet, which it looks to be, T-Mobile will actually own Metronet. And that's part of some of the acquisitions that are taking place. Frontier is being bought out by Verizon. So you got stuff like that. So a lot of the fiber providers are out here are being bought up by the big wireless providers, because they see that the fiber is the way to go. So there's a lot of that going on. Since we've been with Metronet for 4 years, it's been a nightmare, I'll say that, because they're a big behemoth. It used to be when we first started out in 2013, when we built our network and went live with it, 50% of our network, or our network was 50% of what Jaguar's network was overall in their southern Minnesota area. So we were 50% of them, what we built together up in 2013. Metronet is a 15-state, $7 billion juggernaut. They're on the task right now to try to become the 3rd largest fiber provider in the United States. And so little bitty Carver County didn't mean much. So trying to find people as we were working with them to say, hey, we're relevant here. We're partners. Remember that. I can still remember my first meeting with their CEO back in 2020, and he came in with a sales presentation like, well, this is what we can provide to you. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but we own the network in Carver County. Let me tell you what we can provide you instead. And so it was one of those scenarios to go, you got to realize who you're working with here. This is us. This is ours. You came with us. It isn't the other way around. But trying to make sure that we've got the right people in play to be able to make the negotiations and do the great stuff that's brought us to this plate that we have. I want to call out Jeff Georges, who is a senior VP for Metronet, who has been our liaison since 2022. The big things that we've had since 2022 and what's brought us to here have been the Connect Up Carver project and the Connect Up Carver expansion and the ancillary handshake things that we've got going on, to the tune of millions of dollars that Metronet has contributed to our efforts at no cost to us, have come directly because of him being there, pushing and promoting and believing in our vision of trying to get to 100%. And he has been an absolute critical component to that, just as much as it has been the people in Carver County itself that have helped support the operations here. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Well, thank you, Randy. Just advice about when dealing with freshmen. You sort of look, when you don't like the answer, you look kind of beyond them and you say, is Mary Kay around? She'll tell you no, just nicer, I think. Right, Dave? Something like that. But who's got some questions? I want to know if Lynch has, Lynch is our way out there guy in many aspects. How's your service?
Next Tuesday afternoon, I'm getting hooked up.
Was that an invitation?
Yep. Next Tuesday,
We should come out there. And...
they're gonna hook me up. They put it in this summer, And then I asked Randy when they're available, and I think Randy actually had the sales rep give me a call. And next Tuesday, I'm going to be wired up on hard.
Who's your provider going to be?
It's going to be Metronet.
Well, excellent. You'll be able to get me those hunting pictures quicker.
Absolutely. Randy, what about is fiber obsolete? And I've heard, by the time we get it in the ground, it's going to be obsolete. What's your answer?
My answer to that is that I refer it back to the copper that was put in the 1970s, primarily with the Ma Bell companies and what we had there. It was going to be, well, that's going to be obsolete in 20 years. I mean, right now, putting anything in the ground and things like that is costly. And everything that you've got, a lot of people talk about the fact of being Wi-Fi and wireless this and wireless that. If you go back and look at what every wireless provider does, they've got fiber backhaul. They've got high-speed backhaul. It's not, they're not transmitting all that data wirelessly. The spectrum, the physical, I got to go back to my science class in high school and go, the physical capacities of wireless. There's a physical capacity to that via the wireless spectrum that you can do. But fiber is light. It's limitless. I mean, it's at the speed of light, and it's only limited by the equipment that you put on it. So what is the lifespan of it? Right now, we figure it's a 50-year lifespan. Would be just like we had with the copper stuff that's in the ground. Is there still copper out there that's being used on a day-to-day basis in major networks? Absolutely, and it's 50 and 60 years old. And will it be here until somebody gets the ROI to be able to replace it with fiber? Yeah, absolutely. In my mind, you bet.
Well, we did just have about 180,000 landline customers lose service because of copper wire, old copper wire. So nothing lasts forever, right?
Yep, correct.
JP, anything?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. Great job, Randy. Just thank you to you and your staff. And just being responsive, the various calls that I've gotten, and then I call you and you call them back and circle that loop because you got the knowledge base, and those people have been really appreciative of the work you've done and to help those little one-off addresses out in the townships that are really unique. And so now we're having the growth. We got the economic development. This is a powerful tool to help that economic development, and just welcome to Carver County. We're here to help you grow and connect. So thank you.
I'm hoping that from an economic development standpoint for Carver, once we get this done, that our EDA will grab hold of this and really take it out there and swing it around and go, hey, because right now there are less than 40 gig counties in the United States, and there's none outside of the four that we've got up north. But as far as major centers, there's only 40 in the United States. So,
Commissioner Ruderman?
Three themes. One is don't underestimate what it was. You were key to that. The people before the people up on this board helped pave the way too. If those building blocks wouldn't have been there, we wouldn't have had this opportunity. But I think it just shows leadership. It takes vision, big bold leadership and vision, strategy, and then the tasks of actually delivering on it. And I remember that township meeting where we unveiled that this was our goal. And it's like, how are the townships going to respond? The city guys know it, right? But what about the townships? And I remember after you got done presenting, there was one hand in the back of the room, a young lady that said, when do I get mine? And we knew we were onto something. And so thank you for all that you've done. And you mentioned some of it, but it opens up the closure of some of that rural city divide. It opens up the telehealth, as you said. It's a secure way to get internet. Elon Musk has his stuff, but there's a certain fraction that can't do that because of the security pieces. It opens up work from home and telemedicine. It opens up kids working from school. And when we were in the midst of this, it's when we were getting hit the hardest, and I felt it with the kids at home, right? The ones that didn't have a connection fell behind. So this transcends anything that's just silly fiber. It's big, and so I guess the second thing is how do we take credit for this? And I don't mean that pat ourselves on the back. I mean this: how do we uplift this and tell the story across the county, across the state, across the United States? I did a quick Google search, and fifth on the list of what pops up was Carver County seeking to be 100%. There was other counties in North Carolina and Georgia, et cetera, et cetera. This isn't small little, Carver County. This is big. I think the country needs this story, and so I know our team's looking forward to groundbreaking. But this isn't just gather your buddies and a few people that were at the groundbreaking. This is governor. This is U.S. senators. This is potentially presidential type stuff of what we're doing here, and I'm not overstating that. And then the last question is more for you, Randy, is what's next? I'm a guy that says maybe the government should get the hell out of the way a little bit more often. This wouldn't have been done, particularly in the rural areas where it made no cost advantage for the Comcasts to push out to the rural communities. We've accelerated that. To JP's point, we've been able to use this as an economic tool if we were able to share this. Is this time where we consider to say we've done our part, it's time to sell it, it's time to divest, it's time to let somebody else do it now that we've got competition? Would be curious is your perspective.
There's a lot to unfold from that question. And, that's going to come a lot out of administration and what the direction for that is. But, the thing that I would have in looking at what we've got in different fiber ownership models would be, there'd be no reason for us via our agreements to look at selling anything, because we have no skin in the game cost perspective wise for upwards to 20 years. So it'd be when our agreements start to filter out, and then we go, well, now we're going to be on the hook for potentially some cost, it would say that. There's models that are out there where there is a shared public-private network out there. There's several of them in the Twin Cities themselves from a couple of our sister counties, where they actually are tenants in the fiber network that they're in versus the owners, where we own it and then we bring in private service providers. And those private service providers have lanes on our roads. So think about it that way. It isn't just a road and we have it and they have it. This is a multi-lane road that we put in the ground, and they have their own lanes. And so they've actually are able to go out there. So, and they'll own their own lanes. It's just that we own the side road and the ditch and the stuff like that in the road analogy. So I would say that if we ever get to a spot where it doesn't feel favorable to us, it would be where the model would be to go out and take this and still own it, but have somebody else come in and say, well, we're going to give you this piece of this puzzle, whatever that bid out would be, and then you run it for us. But we still get everything that we need out of this, and we still get to own it. So you don't get to dictate our world. We're always going to dictate and be the master of our own world. But the rest of this, you run it for us. Of our stuff, again, remember, everything that we've got out here has also got lanes in it already for the private service providers that are in our network. So it isn't where we get to that, but somebody has to maintain the road as a whole. Those are the providers that we work with. And then we own lanes on that road that are our use, and they own lanes in that road that are their use.
Okay.
So.
And then last thing is more of a comment. I know that we were out in Washington, D.C. on a fly-in, and we had just got money, so it was more of a thank you tour. We had a window to talk to Senator Klobuchar, who's been a huge champion in this space, and we got the chance to talk about fiber. First time she ever held fiber before. And our ask at the time was, can we get a piece of $18 million was the estimate. Your relationships helped negotiate us down out of pocket. It was $2.5 million. And so these are easily defendable when we're out there knocking on doors or talking to different people. And oh my gosh, and I haven't heard a single person say that's too much money. But you were able to get those negotiated. That $2.5 million has gone a very long way. And we'll get that ROI, I don't know, 10, 50, 100-fold. And so for me, I think that the next steps that I'd like to give staff direction is for RA to craft messaging, not just locally, but big time stuff and craft where we can have a groundbreaking. I was just whispering over to Lisa that it wouldn't be great for the optics of lighting up Degler's Farm right in the middle of the city. And I know we've been talking about it. Statistically speaking, about 43,000 parcels, 0.3% is about 1,300 properties. So if we're at 100%, that means 1,300 properties or less probably, are in that fold that we haven't got to yet. That's one of them. And it's highly symbolic because you can see the backdrop of the city of Chanhassen coming around it. And then the second thing is maybe put a time marker on in 10 years to talk about how do we sunset this thing and pass it off with the goal that we don't need to be in the business of fiber forever. It makes so much sense right now. But I think that at least the constituents that I talk to is like, why is government involved in all this stuff? Yeah. This makes complete sense. In 10 years, it probably makes less sense. So thank you for your efforts.
Commissioner Anderson.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to bring this to a little more personal level. So thank you so much for the work you did for Southwest Metro School District. And what most people don't know is that school district serves every single school district in Carver County. And while it's located in Shakopee, it used to be called the Scott Carver Cooperative. So thank you for that, because that serves so many kids. And of course, District 112, it serves so many kids there. So thank you for that. As a person who makes their living working from home, internet is super important to me. And so I do live in Chaska. And so curious as to how we were able to cover the rural sections quicker than those in Chaska and Chanhassen. Just curious for that story as the newbie on the board.
Well, when it came to the cities, I mean, if we take the smaller cities out, even smaller, including the Waconias of the world, and we focus more on the Victoria, Chan, the eastern side of us, the more urban side of us, the cost over here, because it's already built, and it's more legacy built stuff. It's like trying to build out in New York City. It's a nightmare because you're dealing with 1,700 roads type of thing that have been around forever, and you got to try to deal with that. Waconia's got a lot of newer build area. It's still an older community yet, but it's less old than the Chaskas of the world that were more urbanized for a longer period of time, or Chanhassen. So the builds in the cities, I mean, our construction cost out in the rural right now that we've been able to maintain even with inflation, because we've got contractors that we've been working with for a decade and they've held the prices for us. It's $20,000 a mile in the rural. In the cities like Chanhassen, it's nearing $80,000 a mile. So it's almost 4 times as much. So trying to come in and do that. And then the problem that you have a lot as well is that there isn't anybody, even 2022, 2015, 2013, there wasn't anybody in Carver County that didn't have service from somebody. It's just a matter of what that service was. And so coming into a Chaska or Chanhassen where they've already got some type of service, and it's usually decent, it's hard for a provider to come in and go, wow, and it's what they call a take rate. How many people are, if I come in and do what I do, how many people are going to sign up for me? And so coming into an already built out city where there's already a provider there providing okay service, it's hard to get enough people to pull over to them to make it worthwhile. We're in the rural. Metronet has a typical take rate, what they call, hey, if I build it, they'll come. They have a typical take rate of 30 to 40%. In our rural areas right now, we have a standard take rate of about 80% upward to 90%, which is why they've been willing to do that, because the rural build that they did with us is something that they don't do and they've never done with anybody else. We had to actually, and we're not experts at it either, but we came to them and said, we need to do rural. And they said, we don't know how to do that. We're a city builder. I'm like, well, we need to do rural. And they're like, well, show us what you got. So we did. So we sat down and figured out how to do rural and brought it to them and said, they're like, well, we could make that work. And so those have been able to come together because of the fact of that. But the city stuff is more difficult that way.
And I can testify to that. I mean, I have good coverage, internet. I'm out of business if it doesn't work. And so you stick with what you have. So I appreciate that. Chanhassen is part of District 1, as is, and Chaska is as well. And thank you for covering Hesse Road, so appreciate that. That's part of my district. Would love to spend some more time and partner with you and make sure that the rest of Chaska and Chanhassen get covered. I have some connections through Southwest Metro Chamber with Comcast, so
Perfect.
Let's chat offline.
And we've had discussions with them as well. And, they've been responsive to us. I mean, we don't have anything contractual with them. It's more just hey, we'd really like to see that. It sounds like you guys are going down that road anyhow. So, hey, maybe pick us first because we're trying to get this goal here. So
Yeah.
Focus on us here.
And they've made a significant investment as well, of their own money
You
as
bet.
well. And
You bet.
again, whatever private-public partnerships we can create to connect this county more to it. And I will say it is so important to, as Commissioner Fahey said, it is so important to our business community to be connected and have their people be connected. So your work is instrumental. Thank you for that, and just thank you for all you do for the people of Carver County.
Sure. Again, I wouldn't be able to do it without the team that supports me. Like, I can't emphasize that enough.
Good.
Mr. Chair, could I add to that? Going way back, it's probably 20 years ago when we were trying to connect our public works building out in Cologne. That's really the infancy of this whole project. It really started there when we realized that, boy, we could somehow connect that and eliminate our, what do they call them, T1 lines,
Yep.
copper,
Yep.
and actually save money over a period of years. And I think as that evolved, then it evolved into connecting our public partners in particular, trying to get the other cities. And then if you think of all the, beyond schools, all the public buildings, that was a challenge. And then fortunately, some federal money became available, and then it morphed into what it is today, which is a great success story. You know, and next on the agenda, we're going to talk about strategic planning. It would be nice to say, boy, we planned all that out. To some degree, yeah, we did, but a lot of it was, you know, because of the circumstances and opportunities that were out there. So great success story. Great job, Randy, and the rest of the team.
And to tag on that from the connectivity, I mean, we provide connectivity for the court system for McLeod County, for Sibley County. We carry traffic for the University of Minnesota. We provide redundancy to the 800 megahertz 911 system for Scott County. We're helping to marry together Hennepin and Scott County for their 911 system. So it's some of that type of stuff that has nothing to do with us individually here, but it's us being a good partner in the region, because if we all do well, then you know, it's good for us too, so.
Randy, thank you. And those of us who are Carver County originalists would say Hess Road.
Oh, Hess.
But if somehow out in western Carver County, if it's an H-A with an E on the end, you're Hasse, I think.
HESSE?
H-A-S-S-E, isn't there Hasses, but not Hesses. So thank you.
Thank you,
I'm related
Chair
to some
Workman.
of them
I appreciate it.
people.
All right.
But Randy, thank you. Always,
Yeah.
like I said, compelling.
Thanks, Randy.
Appreciate it. All right, next up is that strategic planning process, Mr. Hemsey.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Good morning, board members. I know I'll disappoint you today. I don't have a presentation. Maybe next time. So I'll be very brief. As we do each year, I'm looking toward updating our strategic plan. And I think we should feel fortunate. We have an expert that has come on board. As Commissioner Anderson has in her other life, her private life, consulting, is in the consulting world with leadership development and strategic planning. So I didn't waste that opportunity. I've had numerous discussions with Lisa about our plan, and I did bring in Board Chair Workman more recently to talk about it. And I think fundamentally, we agreed that perhaps our plan has gotten maybe a little too detailed in nature. There's a lot of good information in there, don't get me wrong. However, you know, 19 pages of pretty fine print, pretty hard to swallow. And I think with Lisa coming on board, maybe a great opportunity to hit the reset button, to take a higher level look at it, and most importantly, to get clear board direction on some what you feel are top initiatives. And really, to me, that is very critical to get that board guidance, clear guidance. And, you know, certainly not to cut out the division directors, an absolutely key group that we need to get input in. And I'm not sure exactly, I don't have a recommendation on that today, but I would like to just get your direction, make sure you're comfortable proceeding with some assistance. I think it'd be very good to have some facilitation behind the effort as we're hitting the reset button. My suggestion to Tom and Lisa was former Scott County Administrator Dave Unmacht, who I think most of you know. He's doing some work in that area. I've seen him in action, very good at it. But there are others. What I'd like to do is meet with Tom and Lisa and him again and talk about the scope of it. I'm not sure of the cost. You know, I threw a 20, 30,000 in there, probably on the high side. It really depends on the effort, the scope, exactly where we're going to end up. what we're going to end up doing. So with that, I'd turn it over to the expert, Lisa, for your comments and your thoughts coming in with a fresh set of eyes in this thing.
Yeah, thank you. Expert is a strong word. I have done my fair share of strategic planning and processes, and I use that as part of my curriculum. But what I chatted with Administrator Hemsey about is what I looked at the strategic plan. It's a great document for staff and for their direction. As a board member, it felt a little too detailed for me. So really looking at how can we, and I'm also coming off of spending 2 days at AMC where, you know, the role of us, the role of our board is to work together as a team and provide guidance and direction to the county, kind of set the course and let them steer the ship, because it's a big effort. So it's a ship, not just a boat. So the thought is, how can we work together and really identify those 4 to 6 priorities that will really guide our work for the next however many years? And I also appreciate having an external perspective and somebody who can come in and facilitate that work and work with our division directors and maybe a handful of stakeholders to really gather all that feedback, and then we as a board can have something that we really adopt and can provide direction to. So.
Comments? Commissioner Uderman doesn't have a comment.
Would you like one?
Sure.
Happy to offer one. No, I think this is the right work. We've talked about it in the last couple of years where we've gone off-site and we've tried to migrate our task list to be more strategic. I had a chance to sit at Scott County's board meeting last week, and they elevate the same thing, 4, 5, 6 things from the front of the room. And we all have our own different flavor, and maybe there's a good amount of overlap. I think it's helpful to have a third party come in that might not be intimately knowledgeable about us and help guide us to that. But I think that what Commissioner Anderson said about the outcome of having 4 to 6 things that we can elevate from the front of the room. I also think a key piece of that is to ask the staff and the leadership as to what is it that they see. And then I think some of it is you don't know what you don't know. And so leadership takes looking into the future with strategy and vision to say, what is it that we're missing that we might not have seen that if it was right in front of our face. And so you bring, you're an asset when it comes to the strategic development stuff. And if there's other people we need to bring to the table. So huge opportunity for us. There's no lack of opportunity in Carver County. It's picking what those 4 or 5 things are that we can all kind of row in the same direction to say, this is what we're going to put our mark on. Also knowing that we're not all gifted in the same regards. Not everybody has a strategy vision, skill set or vision skill set. And so to, maybe hand the torch to the folks that know what they're doing is probably the smart thing to do.
JP?
I think it's a good idea, Tom, to look at it differently. Just coming from the banking background, and I've been involved in multiple strategic planning sessions, and I think you probably also have, Tom, in your corporate world, and with Lisa's perspective as a consultant, it's good to see that. And yeah, let's look at it differently and see if we can continue to bring the ideas. I really like the comment that Lisa stated that we set the course, the board, but let the administration do the work and steer the ship, because we really rely on our directors and our department heads and let them do their work, and we as commissioners to stay at that level above it and stay out of the day-to-day stuff.
Tim?
Information is good, sir. So if we have a fresh set of eyes on this, I think it'd be a great idea. With Commissioner Anderson's perspective, she's an expert at it, even though she denies it. Fresh set of eyes, take a look at this, and it'd be wonderful.
I look at this as, number one, I don't want to spend the money. I think we'd all be in agreement. Kind of like the person, I think we all know the person. Maybe you are the person who doesn't like to go to the doctor because you just sort of don't want to know anything more or too much or whatever else, next thing you know, you're in the hospital. But I think this is a doctor's appointment in time for the county and the taxpayers, so we can take a good look, go down to Mayo Clinic and take a little look at what it is we're doing. Maybe we're gonna be told we need to join a health club, lose some weight. That's what I think I would like about this. So, but I think it's a good idea and it's gonna be good. The novice, Commissioner Anderson, she doesn't want to be called an expert, so. But I think it's a good idea. So, Dave, I think you got.
Yeah, clear direction. What I'd like to do is meet with Board Chair Workman and Lisa, and like to bring Dave Unmocked in, and I have some others in mind, maybe. If you have others, or anybody does, let me know. But at least start there. And again, I want to make sure our division directors are part of this effort and connected to it, so we'll get feedback there and ultimately set up a game plan and come back in the room for that formal approval. But I would note, we did have a date on the agenda that I'll leave on there for now, but that Tuesday, May 27th was our retreat date out at Paradise Commons. That'll probably work, and the other key about that date is that's at the point in our budget development process where we have a lot more information. It's really getting not fully cooked, but we can kind of tell what it is. So if nothing else, we'll want to do that. But we'll likely set up some other dates depending on the scope as we move forward. But I'll bring that back to you. So thanks for the direction.
Okay.
Yeah, very good.
And also, I'd like to thank all the division directors for being here today and for them weighing in as well. So, thank you.
I told them they have to help.
Yeah, they're critical.
Please.
Critical.
Yeah.
So, and so are you. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Dave. All right, Baylor Park.
All right. Well, good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Thanks for your time this morning. Good to be with you.
Why don't you introduce yourself? We are being live streamed.
Absolutely. And I was going to do the same for Commissioner Anderson. We've met in past couple times, but wanted to introduce myself as well. But Sam Pertz, Parks and Trail Supervisor, worked directly under Marty here 15 years. Oversee our park operations in the service areas within there. And I'd say in the last 5 years, been getting more involved in our planning initiatives and I'll say short and moderate term kind of projects in that area. So that's why I'm with you today. I'm leading a planning update for Baylor Regional Park. I'm going to be brief and really get to the crux of why we'd like to have 10 minutes with you today. Two objectives really is to get information from the board here on the onset to the project start and understand interest and desires and direction from the board as we go into this plan update, as well as talk about the potential and the appetite from the board to consider expanding the park boundary there at Baylor Park. And so we'll get into that here in a little bit more detail. So a bit of agenda we'll work through here quickly and again get to the kind of the two main objectives here. Some background for you. The long-range plan or the master plan, as it's kind of formally kind of coined for Baylor Regional Park, takes us back to the mid-1970s. You can see that screenshot from that physical plan conducted in 75, which if you notice is really for all three parks that are in the system. So it wasn't at that time even specific to one park. It was a long-range plan that guided all of our parks in that regard. Long-range plans are to be consistent with two higher level planning efforts, the County Comprehensive Plan and the Parks and Open Space Policy Plan of the Met Council. So those two larger kind of higher level planning efforts are to be consistent with long-range plans. And so that work is to be done that way. Long-range plans guide park development. Again, it's kind of at a 30,000-foot level, but it is to guide park development as you look to make investment decisions and what have you. It's not site planning level work and construction document by any means, but it does help guide park development. And really what it does maybe more than anything is it captures public interest in recreation trends at that time. Some planning experts say a long-range plan has a shelf life of 10 years. And so you're really kind of capturing what the interest of your usership is and the trends in recreation for a period of time. So we have kicked off the project here just this month, and you can see it's a 2-year kind of a 2-year window in totality, about 14, 15 months from, if things go well, from January of this year through March of next year. We have some key milestones in there today with you to again get I'll say high level direction on board interest, again, potential park boundary changes, which we'll get to here. We'll work with our park commission here early on as well in terms of a kind of a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. How does our park commission see the future of Baylor Park? Public engagement is key to long-range planning work. And I meant to say back on the previous slide, there is some requirements. There's about 14 requirements that come in the Parks and Open Space Policy Plan of the Met Council. A couple key ones, stewardship, a stewardship chapter of the policy of the long-range plan. What is the stewardship, kind of goals and objectives for the park, whether it's natural resource, whether it's service areas and facilities. The equity piece is certainly a buzzword. It's been a buzzword for a handful of years. In that regard, what we know about Western Carver County, where we think we could be successful as we work to meet that equity requirement is in the areas of income and age, really around youth. There's strong youth usership of the park, and we know in that regard in particular, we can engage with youth and get good information for the plan update. So backing up to that, but again, back to our schedule here, what we envision being back with the county board in September, that would really provide another update. What do we hear from the public? At that point, it should be around 60% plan development, so we'd have, again, good information to provide back to the board. We heard these things from the public in our engagement efforts. And then at that point, we're looking to kind of, I'll say, polish the plan and move it into kind of the formal review and approval processes in December there. We'd be issuing it to Met Council and get some feedback at that point at a pretty kind of complete status, 90%. We will be engaged with Met Council here on the onset, as we're doing with you, to make sure, again, from Met Council requirements, what's the path we need to be on to ensure we're not redoing work come December or September and have to unravel things that are not meeting their requirements. But again, if things stay on track, hoping to have an approved plan with Met Council February, March of next year. So again, objective number one for the day is to get some initial direction from the board. What interest, service areas, what direction does the board have for this long-range plan update? I know at least a couple of you are quite familiar with Baylor Regional Park, what we're successful at, maybe what opportunities there are coming down the pipes that you might see, what challenges might you be aware of. So I guess I'll pause, Chair Workman, and if there's any comments here that the board wants to provide in that regard, I think it's worth pausing and having that discussion.
Well, I know that this came up at the end of last year. I think it was our last board meeting, and I was looking at the agenda. And I think the cost on this is somewhere around $160,000, $70,000. And so my eyes kind of got wide on that. Not so much because it was Baylor Park, which I think we all love. It's not as nice as Minnewaska. I mean, how could it be? But it was there with a whole bunch of other spending not related to you or anybody else. And when we were trying to get that levy down in the last meeting, I'm looking at all this spending, and I think it's probably more in line with do we have to do everything this year? And we did pass it. We are gonna take a look at Baylor. I need to spend a little more time out there, and maybe you guys can give me a little quick tour soon, or maybe spring is good. But so I don't know the park as well as I do Minnewaska. So maybe I'm leaning on JP and Tim on this, but I think bombs away on it and make it a great park. At least as good as Minnewaska.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think we just have a great opportunity, and maybe you bring out your fat tire bike and I'll get mine and we'll go for a little tour on.
You guys are off. You're off the hook.
I don't own one, so if you got a third, I would definitely participate, or I could run alongside you, but yes.
You could run alongside.
I think so,
Okay.
for the first half mile.
It's wonderful. It's very heavily used. We'll go by in the weekend with the camping out there. It's absolutely wonderful. It has a couple cross-country races on it. The boardwalk was rebuilt this year and sees heavy use. But the major need that I can see is that the barn is 1935 barn's in great shape, wonderful shape, but bathrooms need to be updated. And that's going to be costly.
Well, I know when I'm on the Minnetonka Trail, I think I've told the story before, and I'm on the Minnetonka Trail a lot, and I see couples riding with looks like a lot of gear, panniers, bags on their bikes, and unfortunately for them, I will ask them, "Where are you going? What's this all about?" "Oh, we're going out camping in Baylor." Now, I don't know at the end of the Minnetonka Trail how they're getting there. I never asked that. Do we know?
Well, yes, you can get from the LRT through going on county road system to the Dakota Rail. And then Dakota Rail is just 3 miles north, 3.5 miles north in New Germany to the trailhead there, and you can drop down 33 into Baylor Park. So, anecdotally, in my 15 years, I bet you a dozen to 20 people, if I had to pick a number, have done just that, where I'm at the park at the time where they're biking in and they're loaded for a weekend of camping and they've came from somewhere east. So that would be the connection, but.
Just a question for you, Sam. You had mentioned about engaging with the Met Council. How are you going to do that now? Is that, for example, through Deb Barber? Is it through maybe our work on the tab?
It'll be through staff. Yeah, it'll be through the parks team there. Emmett Mullins, the parks manager, and their planning staff. So we have time set up to make sure, again, what are the requirements of the policy plan, and make sure we have that captured. So as we proceed, we're hitting those milestones and those measurements, those outcomes that are desired there. A big one certainly, and again, what I wanted to pose a question and get good information. A lot of how at first bullet will be answered certainly is through our public engagement, right? And so we'll get a lot of information, and certainly the intent from users, from residents. How is Baylor Park envisioned in down the line? And so a lot of that will be captured there, and again, we'll be able to report that back with you. And that is, again, as I said, is key with Met Council. What was your public engagement? Did you meet the metrics of engagement in those ways?
Did I hear you suggest expanding?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and we can, so again, want to pose the questions. We can come back and have further discussion about where the board might see the plan in the park into the future, but let's move on. So there is a potential to at least present to the board for park boundary expansion. Currently, the park's 200 acres in size. That expansion potential would be, again, consistent with the current 2040 comp plan and 2040 parks and open space policy plan of the Met Council. To show how, if of our 3 parks, Baylor Park has been identified as potential. That takes you back to, well, the next bullet there is a willing landowner. There was a conversation had many years ago, Marty had it, of course, with this landowner that at least at that time had shown interest to potentially sell land to the county for park purposes. I'll point out too that as we go into this plan update, we intend to sit down with all property owners that have adjacent property to Baylor Park and give them that same opportunity to at least be considered. So that is part of the strategy here as we move into engagement. So more specifically, potential park boundary, again, 2 parcels owned by Tim Zellman. Here, maybe 3 weeks ago, Commissioner Fahey, myself, and Marty, and I sat down with Tim, and again, this is a conversation that was had, as Marty describes it, going on 20 years ago, of at least an initial kind of interest to sell land to the county for park purpose. It's about 70, the 2 parcels are about 70 acres in total. You can see them there kind of crudely outlined in red. One to the north of the park and one to the south of the park, which if you're familiar with, the road system there, County Road 33 takes you to Baylor Park, and the parcel to the south would be, following Eagle Lake on the southwest shoreline. There is some natural resource benefit to both in terms of, certainly lakeshore property. The upper northern portion is nice mature timber, old growth timber, and that piece in particular does have some nice diverse landscape features. So what we're here today is, again, to gauge interest in the board's appetite for potential land acquisition through the willing landowner, and to consider taking at least an initial step. You need to understand the value, of course, before you can really make any real decisions. Anticipating appraisal services for both parcels coming in between $3,000 and $4,000.
Per acre?
No, to do the appraisal services. To do the appraisal services, to understand value for those two those two parcels.
I'd buy it.
Sentence you didn't tell me. I'll write the check today.
Yeah, correct. So the interest is, working collaboratively and in good partnership with the landowner is to offer to reimburse the landowner for those expenditures. Eminent domain, so we've met with our right-of-way specialist, Pat, and Pat has explained that this is not eminent domain, as I'm sure you understand. And so there's not a statute guidance or limit in terms of how reimbursement could be issued for appraisal work. The estimate is in that 3 to 4K range between those two parcels to have that work done, and that would be under consideration for reimbursement to the Zelmans. Prior to that, before any money's reimbursed in that regard, a memorandum of understanding would be entered into with Tim to state out, confirms intent to sell the land to the county, recognizing that appraisal reimbursements, what those terms are, and that the requirement is that information, that appraisal information is returned to the county. So a bit about land acquisition process here, kind of taking the next step forward again, depending on board interest in this area is, conducted appraisals, the county would perform its own, the property owner would conduct his own. That information, again, must be shared back with the county. We'd return to the boardroom with an authorization interest to negotiate a purchase price. If negotiations are successful, we'd draft a purchase agreement. That signed purchase agreement allows the county to request regional funding. And I think Marty's explained this in past, but there is a funding opportunity at Met Council. It's called Park Acquisition Opportunity Funds. And so that percentage is a 75% regional commitment to a 25% local match. And so that signed purchase agreement essentially puts that request in line for consideration for those Park Acquisition Opportunity Funds. Currently, today, as we stand, there's money in that bank account, but that could change, as we go forward, certainly in a lot of facets. And so I think with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it to the board for questions.
Mr. Chairman, can I make an initial comment?
Yes.
So it's good general advice, and my advice to the board is don't get into a discussion of what you think the value is or what we should be offering. It should just be guidance about whether you want them to pursue potential acquisition, because we'd have to come back to the board in a closed session. I get concerned about getting into the details about how much that it actually costs. Maybe just give an overview so you have enough information to say, yes, we want you to at least look at this option, come in a closed session, or no.
Well, and is this landowner ready now?
It's a good question, Mr. Chair. So and Commissioner Fahey can jump in here too. We sat down. I think there is certainly an interest to, I'll say, continue to pursue this arrangement, get the information, and continue to kind of look at it. Certainly, he said that there's interest to sell. We haven't gone into what that timeline is. There's, again, want to really do right by the landowner here. There's ways that maybe he would prefer the transaction to go down in different ways, whether it's from from an income perspective or whatever it might be. So really want to make sure it's cooperative and conducive to his wishes in that regard. But certainly an interest. Yep.
And Mr. Zellman has lived alongside Bailiff Park his entire life, and he was very supportive of and really enjoys the park and really supportive in the expansion of the park.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, information is good. We have a willing landowner, and we can certainly sit down and have a discussion.
I was interested in that map, and so I don't know if around that north end is a future possibility to get the whole lake.
Yeah, so again, that's a good comment, Mr. Chair. Our intent, like I said, would be to sit down with all adjacent property owners. There might be other interest here. We just are aware of this one. There might be other interest to, again, sell. So what Tim has here, Colin told me how to run the laser, but I'm going to screw it up. Bottom button. Okay. Oh, I see. That's pretty cool. Tim owns, I think it's 162. So I'm going to try to trade. Here's his residence. This 50 would be subdivided off this entire 160. If this is kind of hard to operate. This is different ownership down here. And this is different ownership along these parcels down here. So again, our intent would be to sit down and have conversations with those property owners. This topic would be, at least this question would be provided to them, as well as what other, as key stakeholders, to the park and to the use of the park, and the topic of water, quality issues of Eagle Lake. Certainly those things have been conversations that have been had for many years. Want to engage with this key stakeholder group in a lot of facets. But again, land acquisition being an option that we would at least entertain on in that regard to all property owners. But so I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yep.
yeah, potential.
And
Okay.
then also, we had talked at that meeting about having a northeast access off of County Road 135 to come into the park. We thought that might be a viable option somewhere down the road, if it's 10, 15, 20 years down the road, to expand the park.
Well, I'll be here in 20 and I'll support it, so. Praise God. I was at the Metro Regional Parks meeting yesterday alongside Marty Walsh. And just a note to say, Marty does a really good job defending Carver County and regional parks, usually against the Met Council. Not so much against the Met Council, but to make sure the Met Council is aware of the reality of how things pan out here. And so I just wanted to throw that out. Marty is a good resource down there. So big business, this regional parks.
And just to your point, Mr. Chair, I think Deb Barber has been very supportive of Carver County as a whole. And I think it'd probably be important to have some sort of discussion with her, as her role on the Met Council might help.
And then perhaps how this 75% reimbursement scheme with the Met Council is different from the scheme that we're in now, where we're not being reimbursed due to an IRS ruling. Maybe that's not a question, but maybe help us understand.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that's beyond my scope. So if either Marty can comment or maybe Dave can comment on that, I guess I'm unaware of.
This is different, Dave?
They figured out a new way to do it, too, The old way is the problem, the new way is fine.
And how much are we holding the bag for still? On previously? What's the number, Marty?
Mr. Chair and members, I believe the number is 4 million.
Commissioner Ruderman?
Mr. Chair, just a couple comments. I've offered the thought of 5 million visits to our parks by 2050. Baylor Park by far is the most underutilized park, so this is super exciting that we're in the midst of this. $175,000 for consultants to look at this is not a open it up and close it down. It's an opportunity to look and green. And Henry Ford once said, if you would have asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So while we're going to seek public input, it's also helpful to know that the public often isn't the ones that have the big vision and what this could be. And so when you're looking at this, just some thoughts from my perspective. It's great that we have a willing landowner that values the park and has lived there for a long time. It's also helpful to know in the next 50 years, there's gonna be a lot of growth in that area. And this park may actually save the local townships and cities if we provide the right amenities. I also think we can be bold in this regard, that this park could potentially generate 1 million or 2 million visits in the next 20 years. With the thought of an amphitheater, the way it's scheduled, you see how it goes in there where the water isn't all that great and the beach isn't all that used. That's a thought. Camper cabins. What might it look like if we had 8,000 to 10,000 people come for a large scale event on a regular basis? Utilizing this for a destination. And so I hope it's not just a let's replace some stuff because it's old conversation. I hope it's, last time we did this was 50 years ago. Let's embrace that moment. The other thing is I love opportunity buys and the potential of that, and I think this opens up conversations. I don't think we get 2 or 3 bites at the apple if there's legitimate dollars from the Met Council. So as we're scanning and purveying this, I think that there's an opportunity for a trailhead in downtown Victoria that we can contribute and help with to unlock that potential. I think there's resource acquisition opportunities around Miller Lake that have presented themselves in different ways. And so, you know, I love the thought of opportunity buys in the heart of the board to say, let's look into it. We'll have to prioritize what that might look like as we look into the future, where that might be best suited. And then I just did some quick research. Apparently we have 7 lakes in Carver County that have 235 acres or more of capacity. This one is 183 acres, so it falls just below that. So it's probably one of the top 10 largest lakes in Carver County. Of course, Oconee has 3,200 acres. It is the second largest in the metro. I think it's the 40th largest in the state. And so it's not the smallest lake, it's not the biggest lake, but it does have some properties that, if done right, you know, what most people would say is a yucky lake could actually be a great lake with the help of some people that are in the room. So let's embrace this moment and see what we can do. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. And as far as looking at property around the lake, I mean, now is the time to do that. If we're reimagining this park, then let's see what all the opportunities are. So I appreciate you doing this work, and as a former Cub Scout mom, I know that there's been a lot of good time spent camping at Baylor Park, so thank you for that.
Okay, anything else? Carry on. Thanks, Sam. Good to see you.
Very good. Thanks, guys.
Can't wait to see you run alongside of Fahey and I. Chubby bikes. Wait a minute. Fatty
Can we
bikes?
record that?
Same
Can we
level you
record
like.
that?
All right, we're going to talk about solid waste, one of my favorite
All
topics.
right. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Brad Hansel, I'm the manager with Environmental Services. So today I'm just going to be giving you a overview of the solid waste management plan process, components of the plan, and our next steps. Some of this will be a review for you from what I presented back in August of 2024, but I thought it'd be good to bring it back with the addition of Commissioner Anderson on the board to kind of run through some of these topics again. One item I just wanted to note is I will be returning to the board in February for the February work session to talk more on EC long-term planning and the solid waste fee. I know those are 2 topics that have come up. So just want to let you know that if you have any questions, we will be diving into those 2 topics deeper in February. So the agenda for today, so just like I mentioned, I'll walk through the solid waste management plan process involving the Metropolitan Solid Waste Policy Plan, the county plan, our public engagement process, the strategies, which is really the backbone of our plan, the next steps for our plan, and then we'll have time at the end for some questions and input. So the Metropolitan Solid Waste Policy Plan, the MPCA is required by statute to prepare a Metro Solid Waste Policy Plan every 6 years. The policy plan outlines goals and strategies for managing solid waste in the Metro, and it also guides the county's solid waste management plan updates. The most recent policy plan was adopted by the MPCA on January 30th of 2024. That date's important because then that kickstarts our master plan update, management plan update. So our county solid waste management plan. So the components of the plan, it's really 3 different components. So it's the existing system, which is a general description of the county, including demographics. It's our waste generation and landfill diversion rates. And then also the programs that we've used over the past 5-10 years to divert waste from landfill. It also includes goals, objective goals, and quantifiable goals to meet those landfill diversion rates, and then also strategies, which I mentioned is the backbone of the plan for managing the programs. All counties have to have a public engagement process. This is laid out in statute. So what we've done, and I'll get more into these different processes, is we completed a survey in 2024, a public survey. We assembled a stakeholder group to provide feedback on the plan and the strategies. And then also we'll have a public comment period coming up here, and then also a public hearing for additional chances for the public to provide feedback. The deadline for us to submit our county solid waste plan to the MPCA for their review and approval is March 31st. And just an item of note on that, when the policy plan is adopted, and that was adopted on January 30th, the Metro Policy Plan, we have 9 months to complete our update of our plan. The MPCA, admitted that that is a tight timeline, and they encouraged counties to apply for an extension. So leadership did apply for an extension of March 31st, just to give us more time to complete the plan and then get, additional public feedback. So the public engagement process. So we released a public survey from January to April 2024. There was 18 questions. I'll get into these couple examples at the end of the slide here. So we had 891 responses, which was fantastic. I think that was a really good response rate. We advertised it on Facebook, postcards at libraries, city halls, community events, and we handed those postcards out at the Environmental Center as well. Results can be viewed by searching for future planning on our county website, so you can see all the data from the survey. So the two examples that I did list here is kind of the two hot button topics right now. So it's, do you support requiring haulers to offer curbside organic recycling collection? The response is, it was 65% supported requiring haulers to offer curbside organics recycling collection. 11 opposed and 24 were neutral. So that was, pretty surprising to see that 64% did support that strategy. Another topic is weekly recycling collection. That's a big one as well. That one was flipped. 48% opposed weekly recycling, because especially if it costs more on their monthly bill. 28 supported and 24% were neutral. So like I said, this was very good information for us to gather from the public to help us identify strategies we wanted to choose for our management plan. Statute requires us to convene a stakeholder group. So we had a stakeholder group consisting of 17 members, residents, businesses, nonprofits, public entities, and members of the waste industry. We also had county staff participate, MPCA staff, and then our board chair, Commissioner Workman, sat in on those meetings as well. We had 4 meetings from April through June 2024. We reviewed, discussed, and received feedback on survey results and policy plan strategies. We also conducted a couple polls to obtain feedback from the stakeholder group. And most recently, we sent the draft plan out to our stakeholder group the last couple of weeks to get their feedback. Just a couple minor changes, otherwise we received very positive feedback, and just thanking county staff for putting together a solid plan and taking their advice on the strategies that we selected. So state policy plan strategies. There's 75 total strategies contained in the Metropolitan State Policy Plan. They're broken down into 4 different categories. So required, the policy plan contains 32 required strategies that counties must incorporate into their county plans. There's optional strategies. The policy plan includes 28 optional strategies, each valued between 4 and 9 points, so different value. Gives the counties flexibility to choose from these strategies to meet a minimum of 75 points for the strategies that they select. There's also an opportunity for alternative strategies. So we can propose alternative strategies to the MPCA. Those strategies must meet policy plan, the goals of the policy plan, and they have to be approved by the MPCA. And then there's also state-led strategies. There's 15 state-led strategies, and those are the responsibility of the state and will support the county efforts. So required strategies. Broke this down into 3 categories. So not yet implemented by Carver County. There's 14 total that we have not yet implemented. Couple of examples. Make residential curbside recycling or organics collection available in cities with a population greater than 5,000 by 2030. That'll be a big one because we're mandated to, haulers will have to make that available for residents. That'll cost residents more money. So that's, that's going to be a big one. Require management of organics from large commercial food generators by 2033. Next category, implemented or partially implemented by Carver County. We have 15 total. So there's quite a few that we've already implemented or have began working on. A couple examples of this is continued participation in the reciprocal use agreement for HHW collection sites, and that's household hazardous waste collection sites. So what that is we work with the other metro counties and also McLeod County, so our residents can utilize those facilities, their residents can utilize our facility, and we charge back if a resident uses our facility. So it's a great program. We also, already offer grants for waste reduction, reuse, and repair to businesses, organizations, and nonprofits. So another great program that we're already are working on. And then there's also some strategies that are not applicable to Carver County. There's 3 total. One example is requiring waste composition studies at landfills that are in our county every 5 years. We don't have any landfills, fortunately, so we don't have to, work on that goal. So. Optional strategies. Staff are recommending 14 optional strategies totaling 100 points to be included in the draft plan. So those were selected with help from the survey, the stakeholder group, budget considerations, and then just alignment with our current implementation efforts. So there's not yet implemented, there's 9 total. A couple examples include providing deconstruction training. So what this is, if someone's remodeling their home, encouraging them to, take out those cabinets, take out, nice wood beams and reuse those items rather than just throw that in the trash. That's, deconstruction training. Incentivize tree treatment as a cost-effective strategy to extend the life of ash trees. With emerald ash borer going around, we're trying to extend the life of those trees rather than cutting them all down. Implemented or partially implemented, there's 5 total. One example is to establish additional organics drop-off sites in the county. Right now, we have 5 drop-off sites, Chaska, Chanhassen, Waconia, Watertown, and Victoria. We are already in the works of adding 2 new sites, one in Carver and one in Cologne. So just expanding that opportunity for residents to drop off organics since that curbside option is not available right now. Some of the optional strategies that we are not recommending. There's 12 strategies in the plan that we are not recommending. Couple examples is adopt an ordinance with a mandatory consumer charge or ban for single-use items. So that would be, straws, cups, those bags, those types of items. There you go. Contract for residential MSW recycling and organics by 2030. So essentially that's organized collection where you select one hauler or a few different haulers and the decision is made for the property owner. It's not an open system. But then also allow assessments on property taxes to spread out the cost of tree care over a multi-year time frame. So these are options that we're not recommending. Alternative strategies. So staff have proposed several alternative strategies to the MPCA totaling 21 points. And you might be thinking, we only have to hit 75 points. Why do we had 100 optional strategies points, 21 here. The thought is some of these we're already doing, okay? So, and then also it gives us some flexibility if we're not able to do one of these programs in the next 5 years, we still have enough to meet the goal of the 75 points. So a couple examples here, curbside recycling collection. The policy plan strategy states that, collect recycling weekly by 2030. We're not recommending that. What we are recommending is a proposed strategy of providing additional free carts to customers upon request. And having that, so the haulers would, provide that opportunity to the residents, and that is one item that the MPCA supported. So that's a proposed alternative strategy. Another one is establishing a lending library that promotes shared ownership of items, and that is already taking place at the RAC nonprofit here in Chaska. That's open for membership, and I would recommend if any of the commissioners would like to take a tour of that facility, definitely reach out to me and we can set that up. But it's a really, really neat opportunity.
Mr. Chair, Brad, just to go back that one slide, that free recycling carts, I know we've talked about this before, and is it just people don't know that that's available, or how do we get that message out? Because I think last time you were here, we were all kind of surprised that I could get another recycling cart, and it's just, even though they pick up every other week, it always seems to be more and more is going into recycling now. And
right.
The working from home and the Amazon packages, et cetera.
Yes, Commissioner, to answer your question, yeah, we've reached out to the haulers, and a majority of them do offer the free carts at no charge, additional carts. It's just an education effort on our behalf, and we've been doing a lot through our Facebook. We actually are going to be doing a staff retreat and focusing on our communication and outreach, the next couple of years, and that's going to be cardboard's a big topic for us right now, lithium-ion batteries, some of these. So we're going to be really focusing on, getting the word out and working with our communications manager to really get that word out to the public. State-led strategies. So I did mention earlier that there are some strategies that are going to be led by the state. Some of those examples are, requiring waste composition studies at landfills, research and pursue financial strategies to incentivize waste reduction and reuse, such as grants and loans, and then incentivize deconstruction over landfilling. So once again, that's taking those materials out of a house or remodeling project and using those materials at a reuse store rather than, throwing it into a landfill. So. How are we going to pay for a lot of these strategies? So the funding for the strategy implementation. So we have the Carver County Solid Waste Service Fee, which is a fee on developed parcels that we collect here at Carver County. That's a $35 annual fee for single-family dwellings, and then that fee varies based on multi-unit and then also commercial and industrial properties. We received 2 annual grants from the state, the SCORE grant and the LRDG grant. And then there's other one-time grant funding opportunities that staff have pursued and will continue to pursue to fund these strategies. Our timeline and next steps. So as you can see, we've completed about half of the process here. We have a draft plan that was sent out to the county board last week. Our goal is to release that draft plan for public comment next week for a 3-week time period. And once that's finalized, bring it back to the board for a resolution to submit the draft plan to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. That would be in March. Once that's completed and we submit it to the MPCA for their review and approval, we would then bring it back to the board for a public hearing and then adoption of the plan. So, just another version of the timeline here. And I guess I'll open it up to any questions or input from the board you may have on the plan or the next steps.
Commissioner Ruderman.
Do you have any idea how much unfunded state mandates is nestled within this that we're absorbing?
Commissioner, I don't, and that's something that we could definitely look into, how much it would cost to fund the strategies that we selected. It was the question that Commissioner Anderson brought up, but I think that's something that we could, look into.
Back to the napkin would be helpful. Thank you.
Well, in the industry, you got your recycling truck, and of course, a lot of it is now just commingled. And I can guarantee you, if I did an audit of a random person's home of what's in their commingled recycling bin, there would be a lot of foreign objects that they wish they could recycle. And so to the compost, curbside composting, there's been a variety of ways to do that. And I guess industry-wide, the blue bag option, which is a compostable bag, you put your food waste in, you throw it in with your garbage, and then they pull it out at a processing facility, what we used to call a dirty MRF. But that touching of the garbage is an expense, and the extra truck to come to your house if you're going to do it separately from everything is another expense. I've been in a lot of what they call organized collection fights. Why don't we just get one hauler in this town? And one of the main tenets the proponents have for that is, well, they're ruining our roads, but they keep wanting to add more trucks. I used to say the government shoots their parents and then they cry orphan a lot. So it's a real funny deal, and anyway, we'll watch as this all works out. But I'm all for recycling, and I don't owe landfills anywhere anything, and so let's keep it out of there. but it has to be at a reasonable cost. When you're over in Ramsey and Washington counties and their commercial tax on solid waste is 62%, and that's on top of the state taxes, I think.
Correct.
So if you are a small business and you have $100 a month garbage service, it might be 180. So that's what other counties are doing. And I've said we've inadvertently here in Carver County done the right thing, and we don't have any landfills or anywhere to go. We're an exporter, and Brad probably doesn't sleep at night because of that. But the issues that other counties, our friends on the other metro counties have, we don't have a single problem in the world compared to what they have. So inadvertently, I think we've done all right. So any other questions?
I just have a comment.
Lisa?
All right, thank you, Chair Workman. And we've conversed, by the way, we've conversed over email a little bit because I thought I'd save you all of the remedial questions I have regarding this. Brad, I really, really appreciated the draft plan, and we'll put a plug in for anyone who is passionate about environmental services or recycling to. There's more to this than just recycling and solid waste. It was very well done. It gave a great overview to our county and the strategies. And I appreciate the question about the unfunded mandates and how we're paying for this, because of course that's a top of mind for me as well. And I also kind of want to do a shout out to, you mentioned in the plan, the amount of nonprofits that are involved and help us. The RAC, I've been there. I'm a big fan of the RAC. Also, A Better Society also helps with Fix It Clinic. And then you also mentioned our food cooperative. And so we're really blessed in this county with the amount of nonprofits who help us in a variety of different areas. So I just wanted to shout out to anyone, if you have a chance to look at this plan, encourage you to read it. And as far as the strategies, I'd be curious to see kind of what kind of feedback you get. We do have a lot of great strategies already in place, and kind of that cost benefit analysis of what if we have a high benefit and a low cost, awesome. Some things might take a little longer to implement. And so kind of looking at those strategies from that aspect. But I appreciate the work you do for this. I appreciate people think about this and do this. And just thanks for all your great work.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, I just have to commend our staff for putting together a great plan and working through this process. It's not an easy process, and put together a really great plan. So,
They really
thank you.
did.
Anybody else? I did get the email and I shared it with you, Brad, that I have been added to the AMC Solid Waste Work Group, which is about, 15 county commissioners from across the state. So, and they've all got different issues. How many of you know that the 80 counties in outstate have a different set of rules than the metro counties have on solid waste? So, but Commissioner Lynch lives just feet away from a different set of rules on solid waste. So, but we'll see how that goes. I've been on a lot of blue ribbon panels studying solid waste, et cetera, and it's a hard issue to deal with. So, well, seeing no more questions, thanks, Brad. Anybody else have any other questions? If not, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Matt, I'll get our
Thanks, Brad.
legislative committee going in 5 minutes or so.
We're doing it here and
Yeah, right here.
that was historic. First recorded, I think we peaked it